Welcome back to Not So Grand Garage. Today we're out in the drive working on the Tahoe again, and today we're going to try and nail down some of the stuff to make this thing run on oil a little bit better. First up is timing spacer. It's a dynamic timing spacer, and we'll go into the details of that here in just a minute. So let's get at it. There are several companies that have made these over the years for the VE pump. M&H was one of them. I think they were one of the first ones that made this. But this one here is from Engineered Performance. I think it's like 50 bucks nowadays. But what it is a 10mm spacer, a spring spacer, and just a couple bolts. So that goes down here underneath the KSB device. So we will loosen it up if we can. We'll move it away from the pump a little bit. There's a spring in behind it and a couple other little things that need to come out. Now, what this spacer will do is it will bump timing a little bit at low RPM and idle. But the big thing is it gives a dynamic timing increase of up to 10 degrees at the top of the RPM range. Being as this pump has 3200 RPM governor spring in it now, which will be bumping that up again hopefully this winter, I think it will help out quite a bit. So as the timing curve built into this pump was set up for the factory governor settings. So spinning the engine higher than that, it's not going to continue to advance the timing like it should. Because once it hits its limit in the advanced device, it can't go any further. Adding this spacer gives another 10 degrees to that range throughout the RPM range. So the pump's timing advanced device will still have total control over the advance, but just gives it more room to move, if that makes sense. So yeah, we're going to try and tear into this. The theory here is that because oil, yes, it has more energy to it, but it burns slower. So it needs more time in the cylinder to extract all that energy, essentially. So we want to get it injected in the cylinder a little sooner, give it more time to burn, hopefully increasing mileage, increasing power output, and preventing the coking issues, getting us a cleaner burn. But we'll see. From here, it's injectors, and then we're going to go on and finish plumbing up the second tank. For now, we're going to tear into this and see how it does. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see the screws or not, but there are two T30 bolts, T30 Torx head down here under the KSB device that holds the KSB to the pump. You do not have to remove this line. There is enough room to pull the KSB out away from the pump to get to these, and they are prone to stripping out. So yeah, I'm gonna sit the camera down and see if I can get those out. I was having trouble seeing down here what I'm doing with the power steering pump in the way. So there is one of our bolts, and the other one is right there. It's kind of down in a weird spot next to the pump, but I think if I can set this camera up where I can just let it rest down here like so, I might be able to use it to see what I'm doing while I work. So yeah, we're gonna try it and see if it works out. Yahtzee. So the KSB is now loose. There is a spring and little spacer behind it, so we need to be careful not to lose those. But we're just gonna carefully work this up and out of the way a little bit so we can get the spacer and new spring spacer down in place. Now, this is the spacer. There's O-rings and everything, so I gotta move everything out of the way so I can get the O-rings in, then the spacer, then another O-ring, and then the spring goes back in place. But supposedly I can do that without removing the KSB completely, but I might just go on and take it off. We'll see. Don't know if I can break this nut loose, but I don't know if I want to chance it either. We'll figure it out. So I got the spring and the spacer from behind the KSB, and there is an O-ring back there that needs to be removed and replaced with one in the kit. Then the spacer and an O-ring goes on it, and then this little spacer is for the spring, so it stacks on top of the spring on top of the spacer when it all goes back in place. So yeah, it can be a little tedious from the looks of it, but I think we'll get it. As I put everything together, I'm going to use some Transgel red assembly grease. It's automatic transmission assembly grease on the O-rings, and to help hold all of our shims to the spring. It dissolves in oil, or yeah, it dissolves in automatic transmission fluid. It'll dissolve in diesel fuel too, and whatever other fluids are in the tank. But yeah, shouldn't cause us any grief and should help us out in the assembly process. I can't get the camera quite down to show you what's going on down there because it's really tight spaces. So I'm going to get it worked back together and go from there. A little dab of assembly grease, as you can see, will help hold everything together as it goes into place. I would use actual assembly grease, not just any grease you have laying around. Maybe too picky, but whatever. A little assembly grease will help you out a lot in this, especially if you're like in my case where the power steering pump is right there instead of a vacuum pump, or if you don't have the pump out on the bench. Alrighty, we got our parts all stacked up, got our bolts started, O-rings and everything are in place, and I tell you what, this little camera made this job a lot easier because you can't see anything down there with the power steering pump there. So yeah, this is a tedious and time-consuming job with the pump in place if you've got a power steering pump there, because access is pretty well non-existent. But anyways, I'll get these bolts snugged up and hopefully we'll be done. The spacer is in place down there. You can kind of see the shiny part down in there. Got everything put in place, got the new bolts in. It was a very tight fit to get everything put in, but it is, and everything is snugged up. Now, I am going to leave the KSB disconnected because when it cold starts, it maxes out that timing piston, and I don't want another 10 degrees of timing in this thing at idle. So, supposedly that will affect cold starting, but other than that, it doesn't affect anything. But we'll just have to wait and see when it gets cold how it starts and runs and everything. I do have a block heater on it that I use, so it is what it is. We'll just see how it does. But I'm gonna get everything picked up from under the hood. We're gonna fire it up and see how it sounds. Got it going. Definitely has a little bit more pronounced knock to it, which is to be expected when the timing's ramped up. It is on diesel fuel right now, which it won't be for long, but we don't have any leaks, so I'll take it for a drive and see how it does. Right off the bat, I can tell it's got more power. things that carry that power further into the RPM range, where before, as it was closing in on the governor 3200, power would just kind of fall on its face, and that's because the timing advance piston was already maxed out a good ways before it got to the governor. So now it just pulls, at least it feels like it does. So I'm impressed. I like it, especially for the price so far. The rattle down low is definitely increased, so there is that. But we'll keep an eye on that, and I may back the base timing off a little bit. I do have this thing advanced an 1/8 inch at the pump, so I'm not sure how much advance the base gains from this timing spacer. I'm not sure, and as far as I can tell, there's no documentation that really tells that. So it may be a bit aggressive down low as far as timing goes, but power wise, I mean, feels good and strong. Boost is a little lower, so that's interesting. But yeah, if power's up and boost is down, I'm not overly concerned. But my pyro is currently unhooked while I was installing the radio, so I need to get the pyro hooked back up and see what it did as far as EGTs go. But yeah, power wise, I'm like I said, I'm impressed. But I want to get it back to the house and get some oil in the tank, and we'll let it ride, give it a couple weeks and see how it does then. A couple of you got on me for using the wrong container last time, so there you go. A little over 5 gallons in it. Tank was a little under 3/4, so that should be fairly decent for a test. We'll give it a couple weeks, see how it goes. Well, this is just step one of trying to figure out the best way to make this 4BT not mind its oil diet. So we'll start with the timing spacer. We'll run it for a couple weeks, see how it does, see if we get any major haze or power loss or anything like that. After that, I've already got injectors for it sitting here, so they're going in no matter what, but they are a different nozzle design, so we'll be running those. Going to a 5x12 SAC nozzle, so should pick up 30 to 40 horse and should get a more reliable nozzle out of it. I'm not overly worried about the aggressive timing on this thing right now, because with the larger injectors, that actually decreases dynamic timing. So it should be okay. It should pretty well even out. But we'll just have to wait and see how it sounds and how it runs once those nozzles get, or once those injectors get put in. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap this one up here, and we'll come back to it here in a couple weeks and see where we're at. If you want to support the channel, there's a PayPal account set up. Link to that's in the video description. Got SuperThanks enabled as well. You want to check out our merch, stuff like that, head to the website. That's www.notsograndgarage.com. We've got your black diesel stuff there too. And you got centrifuges, pumps, you know the drill. If you would, hit that thumbs up button. Helps us out quite a bit and doesn't cost you any money. With that said, if you haven't already, please subscribe. We appreciate you watching.